Hermvids with Mr. Herman. Educational videos about reading and writing.
Two households, both alike in dignity, in fair Verona where we lay our scene. From ancient grudge breaks new mutiny, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean. Impressed? I've read that play so many times teaching ninth grade English. Do you know what play that's the start of? It's Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare, and he begins the play with a sonnet. That was the first 4 lines of the sonnet, and his sonnets follow something called iambic pentameter. Now, we're going to study different types of meter and rhythm in poetry today, and iambic pentameter is one of those types. Maybe you've heard it before. We're really going to delve into this topic so you can add a sense of rhythm to the poems you create. So far we've studied word sounds, we've gotten into figurative language, ways to start poems, but meter and rhythm is a way to add some sort of almost geometric So far we've studied word sounds, crafting your poetry with extended figurative language. Now we're talking about rhythm and how to build in a almost mathematical process to the beats of your poem. This process is called adding meter, and we're going to explore several different ways to do this. Rhythm is one of the essential ingredients in poetry. The term for the measurement of rhythm is called meter, almost like when you measure length with a meter. This is just another type, a way to measure rhythm. Meter is something that can have a set of very strict rules, just like in fixed form poetry or formal poetry. I showed you guys a bunch of different types of formal poetry earlier. The English sonnet, Spenserian sonnet, all those good types. But there are also types that are a bit more loose, like informal poetry. Both types can use, and should use, rhythm. The idea is that it should have a purpose to it. Formal poetry has a rule, a regimented meter to it. Informal poetry does not, but it should always serve some sort of goal. Here are the basics of how this works. In metrical verse, each line of a poem can be divided into feet. Each foot can be divided into stresses. So a foot is like 2 syllables, and each syllable can have different stresses that reveal a rhythm. The process of dividing a line into feet is called scansion. That's if you took down a poem and you figured out which syllable is which, and if it's stressed or unstressed. An iamb, or an iambic foot, is one light stress, followed by a heavy stress. Now this is not popping up in Google Docs, but this symbol right here is actually like an upside down U. It didn't pop up here for some reason. So disregard those squares, it's actually an upside down U. So an iambic foot is a light stress followed by a heavy stress. You could think of it like this, like the beat of a heart. Ba-dum. That is what an iambic foot is, and that's what makes up iambic pentameter. It's almost like imitating the beats of a heart. 5 iambic feet strung together, creating a line of iambic pentameter, is the most popular style of meter in formal poetry. That's what Shakespeare used in his sonnets. If you didn't actually read the words, the rhythm of the line would go ba-dum, 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 ba-dum. That gives it a natural progression, a natural beat, and it, like I said before, kind of replicates the beat of a heart. This is a line of iambic pentameter. The heavy stresses are the bolded part. So remember, it's 10 syllables, it goes unstressed and unstressed, and it's read like this. Upon those boughs which shake against the cold. Now, what I did was I emphasized the bolded parts, which are the stressed syllables. That makes it iambic pentameter and gives it a rhythm when said out loud. Now, there's not just iambic pentameter or pentameter. There's stuff out there that varies in syllables per line. And if you don't know what a syllable is, I kind of skipped over that. But a syllable is just one beat. You can measure a syllable by holding your finger underneath your chin, and every time your chin goes down, that's one syllable. You could count it out on your fingers, you could count it out with claps. A syllable is a unit for measurement in the meter for a rhythm. So as you can see here, there's a bunch of different types of meter, and if you know the prefixes like mono, dia, tri, you can figure it out. But a 1 foot line is called monometer. 2 feet diameter, kind of like in geometry. Trimeter, tetrameter, pentameter, hexameter, heptameter, and octameter. Now these are going up from 1 to 8. And remember that a foot is 2 syllables. You have to do a little math there. Now these are all messed up here. So maybe I can pull up the actual Google Docs. There you go. You can see it there. An IM is a light stress followed by a heavy stress. It's like a little U. And it's not upside down. I apologize. It's right side up. A trochee is a heavy stress followed by a light stress. It's the opposite of an IM. A dactyl is a heavy stress followed by 2 light stresses, a badon-don. An anapest is 2 light stresses followed by a heavy stress, ba-ba-dom. And then a spondee is 2 equal stresses. Now, that is the way you can figure out the scansion of a poem. And like an IM represents the beating of a heart, each of these has its own different sound when it's said out loud. Here's some advice. Keep your meter similar throughout. Or you could change it up in the middle of a poem, but the change should have some sort of purpose to it. Maybe there is a new emphasis on a different part of a poem. Or you're changing some sort of mood or a character, some twist in your poem happens, and then you change the rhythm. If you're replicating some sort of sporting event, find beats and metrical feet and symbols that match that sporting event or the rhythm of that sporting event. If you're trying to represent slowness or calm, you change your rhythm to represent that. For our practice, I want you to find a poem that you like or one that you've written in the past, and I want you to mark off the metrical feet and symbols for that poem. This will give you a better handle on rhythm, and you should use this page as advice. These are the symbols for the different types of metrical feet.